Welcome back to another episode of Caps Off by the Game Day. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy freaking New Year.
Hey, happy none of our teams have lost in the New Year yet.
That's a good point. I didn't think about
that. That's true.
That's how it works because it's only the second.
Yep.
Second day of January. Yo, that intro song to this live, bro, is the craziest thing of all time. Like, I just get so hyped when I'm just like we're waiting on the countdown.
We should get AB on it.
If listeners, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you got to tune into the live stream, bro. I'm where's it all go? Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram now.
Reddit, CBS.
Yeah, CBS, ESPN.
McAfee.
We're live everywhere, man. You can find us literally wherever you look in all towns of every place in the world. That's right. Caps Off. Caps Off. We do it live, you know? Also, if you are listening, you do get that same music off the top of the podcast every day.
That's true, but it's not a minute. It's not a minute of just like build up, bro. Right. Like that shit makes me so hyped, man. I feel like I'm about to walk out in the Super Bowl.
You know what's amazing about this episode is that there's officially 2 people in the greatest state recording live from here. You know, last week it was in Texas, and now it's in South Florida. So that's just fantastic news. It's something we definitely should celebrate. And
do South Floridians not identify with the rest of the state of Florida?
Not at all. No, not at all. It should be somewhat of a North and South Dakota, right? If you wanted a full-on Dakota, but North and South Florida is
just Miami Beach based. Miami and the beaches there, and then counties. Everywhere else.
Yeah, you have like Palm Beach County, Broward County, and then Miami-Dade. And then everything else is just a lawless land. That includes Tampa over there, which is nice. But as long as
Tampa's cool.
Tampa's fine, but we don't associate ourselves with them. So South Florida is one state, and North Florida is everything else.
Right, of course. Yep. Quick question before we get into our recapping of Week 17. Did either of you win your fantasy football championships this week?
I mean,
Adam, I know you were in 3 championships. Did you win any of your leagues? I didn't actually get to hear.
It's so funny that you asked this question. You know, not only did I win 1, not only did I win 2, but I won 3, which is more than LeBron won when he was here. You know, this is
no way. Did you actually win all 3?
3 for 3.
Let's fucking go. Good for you.
$10,000,
including that league, including the 10K league, including 2 others. And not only that, it was over before like even the 4:00 game started. It was
That's amazing, man.
I went into that 10K league up like 60 points. Like I had CMC, he had Tyreek, James Cook was on that team, Laporta, but I also had CD and Amon-Ra. So coming out of Saturday night, shout out to Cowboys, shout out Texas, shout out the referees. We were flowing. So I'm very happy. 3 championships. Would have traded all 3 of those championships for the Dolphins to at least have Bradley Chubb healthy, but we'll get into that. So I still am a little bit more rich, a little richer today.
I'm happy for you, man. I'm happy. I'm so happy for you. CD did get you a clutch 40 though. That was impressive.
I will say also, Felipe, I got a lot of DMs, like people thanking like us for helping them with their fantasy championships, for winning them. I didn't even think that we had that type of value, you know, with the fantasy stuff. But hey, here we are.
It's a special time. I got a few DMs saying the same thing. They were like, "Yo, thanks." Tell Adam I said thank you as well. It was great, man. It's great that we can provide that kind of value, you know, especially being in the same state right now, the great state of South Florida.
It's amazing.
South Florida is a state, not North Florida. So
exactly. I mean, you were saying you could see Hard Rock from here, so it's from where you are. So it's great. It's great.
We're getting a million comments on TikTok right now that's saying JJ McCarthy better than Dak.
Right, you know who that is, yo? That's definitely Jack with his boys, yo. Because like Jack
everyone is commenting.
Jack commented. No, it's not everyone, bro. It's Jack and Michael. It's only Jack and Michael. I guarantee you're their BFFs.
You're right. There's a few other people who are hopping on that train, but
shout out Texas, Felipe. Shout out Texas, Felipe. Congrats on
bad loss. I mean, I'm not really a Texas fan, but you know, I gotta represent the state. So that wasn't a great loss. It's okay.
It was a good game. I didn't stay up for the 4th quarter because I couldn't keep my eyes open, but it was a great game from when I woke up.
That's how boring it was. Texas doesn't make it entertaining.
Bro,
no, I fell asleep. Get out of me.
I fell asleep during the fucking Cowboys game, bro. I fell asleep when I fell asleep during the Cowboys game? Who we play? We played the Lions. I was gonna say when the Lions were scoring, the Cowboys were up by like a touchdown or something. The Lions were driving down the field. They scored a touchdown. I fell asleep at the beginning of the Lions drive. I woke up. There was like 24 seconds left. The Lions just scored a touchdown. I'm like, how the fuck is it 21-20? I thought we were up. And then I saw the whole 2-point conversion fiasco. And
that's why you're.
That was a
real Cowboys fan. You didn't suffer through anything else. You just had to wake up at the worst part. That's all.
Dude, I was tripping, bro. I was like, what the fuck? I didn't mean to fall asleep either. I actually didn't. I was that tired. It was crazy.
I feel like sometimes when you're watching a game, that's usually what happens. You don't mean to do it, but then it just happens. And next thing you know, your heart's racing when you wake up.
Yeah.
True.
Should we start there? Should we?
Let's start there. I was about to say it was a fiasco, that whole 2-point conversion situation at the end. A lot of drama. With the Cowboys-Lions game. Felipe, what are your takeaways from that Cowboys win? If you count it as a win.
They just got to make up for these mistakes, man. I mean, back-to-back weeks, you fumble on the 1-yard line. You did it against the Dolphins. That changed the whole script of that game. You did it against the Lions. That changed the whole script of that game. If you go up 14 to, or at that point, I think it was like 14-3, 14-7. Like, if you go up by a marginal or a good amount, the opposite of marginal, a substantial amount at that moment, then now you're forcing Detroit to really air it out and play from behind. And that's where the Cowboys' strength is getting turnovers, leading the league in takeaways the past 2 or 3 years, whatever it's been. And so because of a fumble on the 1-yard line, when you are able to make that leap, it puts you in a position where you're now not playing at your strength. And that's what happened against Miami. And so that's a problem. Again, you saw the run defense not be able to stop anything. Jahmyr Gibbs looked really good, averaging like I don't even know what it was, but looked like he was averaging like 6+ yards per carry. And so again, the Cowboys MO this year, I think it's too late to fix. You have to go ahead. You have to get 7 at least, 10, 14 points ahead, and then you're gonna win every single game you're in. But if you get behind and stupid turnovers can cause that, then you're going to be in trouble and you're going to have to sweat out a game like that. So luckily the Cowboys still beat a good team. So they show that even if things aren't going all the way their way, they can still win a game. But you're not going to beat San Francisco with stupid turnovers like they had against, Miami and Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, I think the easiest I get it. We want to talk about the Cowboys, but I think it's way more important to talk about the Lions. Like we've kind of gone back and forth over the last couple of weeks, whether they're a contender or not, but like this Lions team can generally win a Super Bowl. And I believe that because we've always talked about the Cowboys being a team that at home is a far more superior team, a team that could actually like put up a ton of points. And like, that's a true testament to the Cowboys and what they can, or the Lions and what they can do on defense and how they can execute. Like this is a team that should not be fucked around with. And I think like, it would not shock me if Detroit had to go into San Francisco and steal a win. It just feels like the DNA of that team, right? Like it doesn't, it's their makeup. It's, Dan Campbell, it's their execution. It's like, they're going to beat you in various ways. And I think that is what makes a true contender going into the playoffs. It's like, yes, you might have a high powered offense, but your defense kind of sucks. Or yes, you might have a great defense, but your offense, can't really put up points. The Lions can beat you in any which way. And I think Jack's been saying that all year. And it took us some time to really like catch up to that. But regardless of the score being that close and them getting shafted by the referees, this is a team that can generally win the Super Bowl. And I believe that. So I got to give credit to the Lions. I think with the Cowboys, like, yeah, Felipe, you need this team to go up, by 10. And now Coda's this is what happens with Cowboys fans. I'm going to go on mute.
Oh, so Coda. So hold up. So Coda's a Cowboys fan officially. Go on mute for a second. Maybe Matan can handle it real quick.
Jesus.
I will say this to Adam's point. The Lions shouldn't be getting this much love. The Cowboys have fumbled the bag almost 3 weeks in a row. And they look worse right now than the Lions look good. The Lions, we've seen on multiple occasions, we've seen them get clapped. I'm pulling up their schedule right now. When they got clapped by the Ravens weeks ago, we said, "Oh, it's an anomaly." But I mean,
it is.
They got clapped by the Bears, the Chicago Bears. They had bad losses, but they lost.
You often like to say divisional matchup. Always. Everybody knows their scheme's better. Knows how to fight.
I agree.
Against those teams.
Yes, but that's a 3-point swing, maybe like a 3-point game. Like divisional matchups you shouldn't lose by 15. They lost to the Bears by 15. They almost lost to the Bears the first time. That was one of the craziest comebacks. They lost to the Packers. I know another divisional matchup, also lost by a touchdown. So, I just don't think the Lions are as good. I think they're good. And I think they can upset San Francisco, but mainly not because of Detroit, but more so because of San Francisco, because they're showing signs of weakness.
What'd you say?
If those teams play down, then Detroit can beat them. But that means Detroit can beat the good teams. I want to talk about more so than those teams' performance.
Felipe shit on the Lions again?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I said, hold on. No. I don't necessarily shit on the Lions. I just think you're trying to give them credit when the Cowboys they pretty much fumbled back 3 straight weeks. This is another bad Cowboys performance, just like it was against Miami.
Yeah, but
just
that's
like
my point. That's my point. It's like we got to flip
it. And the Cowboys still won. And so if the other team is playing a horrible game and you still lose.
But we got to flip it from being like, this is the Cowboys' fault, and being like, this is a credit to the Lions. I get the Cowboys won, but this was a blatant, like.
The Lions got shafted. They got absolutely shafted.
I agree you guys won, but we have to go from being like the Cowboys at this point, like they didn't play a great game. Like at what point is it credit to the other team? And I think at this point, if you don't want to do it with the Dolphins, that's fine. But like being at home, I credit the Lions. Like that's it.
Well, yeah. So what you missed was that I just said that the Lions have had some really bad losses this year. Like earlier we said Baltimore when they got killed by Baltimore, we said, oh, that's an anomaly or whatever. But then they get clapped by Chicago, a team that fucking sucks. They lose to the Packers. They've lost to the Seahawks this year. Like they haven't looked good week after week. And we want to give them the benefit of the doubt. I get it because they're a likable team. They have a likable coach. But they're not a top 3 team in the NFC. Like that's
every team in the NFL outside of the Niners and the Ravens right now. It feels like the Cowboys have had bad losses. You've also lost to the Cardinals. You lost to the Dolphins. You've had some ugly losses when you lost to the Bills. Like the Eagles obviously have some ugly losses, and it feels like those would be the top 3 if you're not referring to the Lions. The Lions are a team that has been able to win some good matchups going to Dallas and be able to compete. Like Lions, are a fair contender to talk about. But when it comes to any other team in the NFL, it feels like there's only 2 at the top that have had like good wins and not suffer from bad losses. Outside of that, like if we're going to talk about, but here's what I'm going to say. If we're going to talk about like the Cowboys and say this is another like Cowboys type of, they lost, even though they won this game, it feels like they lost this game. No,
it doesn't.
No, it does. Because at the same time, the Lions were in position to win that game. They converted on the 2-point conversion, and then the refs fucked it all up. Like it was
the Cowboys won the game. The Cowboys won the game. Dak would have drove down the field, kicked the field goal. We would have won that game. Regardless, we won the game.
The refs handed the Cowboys that game, bro. They handed
Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I was very sleepy. To me, it looked like the right call. I don't know if it was the wrong call or not. Dude, I was very sleepy.
The first they went for the 2-point conversion 3 times. The first time the offensive lineman tried to check in with the ref, and then they didn't process that. And then they threw it, converted it to the offensive lineman who caught it, and they said ineligible man. Even though there was like video evidence of the guy going to check in with the ref, and he did it for some reason that ref didn't compute.
But regardless,
they went for it again, and it was called back on a holding or something. I don't even remember what it was.
And then there was the offside on defense.
Once it was called back, Dan Campbell should have took that and been like,
kick the field goal. Okay, once it was called back twice, you got to kick it on the third try for sure.
Got to send you a sign. Go take the extra point.
Yes, agreed.
Don't go for 2. But what I'm trying to say is that I get it. Regardless of wins and losses, let's just purely talk about performance, and being able to go into Dallas is no small feat. So I get it, Lipe. Like we've said, the Lions have had some bad losses, but we've also talked about how the teams have been playing as of late. The Cowboys as of late have been better, but now they suffered a few losses. The Ravens as of late have been dominant, and that's why they are probably going to be considered the best team in the NFL. Prior to that, the Niners were the best team in the NFL because of how they've been playing of late. Regardless of wins and losses, the Lions as of late have been playing like a team that can go win the Super Bowl. So that's why I just think I get it. We can talk about the Cowboys and be like, Cowboys, another kind of choke job. They almost fumbled it away type of situation. But at the same time, like, no, my takeaway is more about the Lions and the Cowboys. Like this Cowboys team has lost, what is this? 3 straight, Buffalo, Miami. And then obviously
we just won.
I'm
also,
saying
the Lions are 3 of their last 6. They're not playing hot.
I'm saying how it's feeling. I'm saying how it's feeling. the Cowboys obviously won this game, but based off of my takeaway and based off of what happened, like the Lions should have won that game. They went for 2, ballsy move type of situation. We could theorize, if we're going to say Dak would have went down and scored, it's the same way I'm going to theorize and basically say that the Lions, it feels like they won. So I just think the Lions are a real fucking team. They can easily go win a Super Bowl. I think they can definitely go into San Francisco and shock them. That's just my takeaway from that game. They're for real. The Lions are for real.
Yeah.
They are. I get it. I get
it. This game didn't show me that. But that's fine if you want to think that. I'm just saying this game didn't show me anything. It didn't give me any hope for the Lions.
You were asleep, so that makes sense. You
lost.
Yo, Felipe, we've been saying all year, don't sleep, and you were asleep. That is on you.
All I'm saying is you go to a contender, you go to Dallas, you're supposed to at least try to, like, you got to win a game like that and you lose. So I don't know why they would get better if they lost a game that they're supposed to win.
Well, Felipe, you said you're going to blow out Detroit by 20. You said you're going to blow out Miami by 20, and neither of which happened. So, like, at some point, we got to get.
Hey, but what did I say, though? I said the Ravens would blow out the Dolphins by 30, and they beat them by 35, 37.
Yeah, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. I mean, I'm with you. I just right now we're talking about the Cowboys and the Lions.
I know. That's what I know. I get it. That's why my storyline is that the Cowboys fumbled the bag and still won, which obviously makes them a team to be reckoned with. If you can play a horrible game and still win, but regardless, I think the Lions are a good team.
They are. They got 11 wins. You can't discredit 11
They're a real fucking contender.
They are. All right. Well, let's talk about that Ravens-Dolphins game. What a sight to behold, wasn't it? Huh?
I mean,
Adam?
Going into that game, like as a Dolphins fan, I was not. We're playing with house money, right? You win, amazing. You're the 1 seed. You lose, okay. You go back home and fight for the division. Like that felt like the probable outcome of the entire situation. You weren't going 3-0 in your last 3. It just felt unreasonable to wish that. But I still think the Dolphins are a team that can contend because, like we've seen, like some teams are going to play well, some teams are not. And with the Dolphins, their biggest like handicap right now is injuries. But this, flipping it, all the credit has to go to the Ravens. Like regardless of the score at halftime, like there were a lot of missed opportunities, but the Ravens just fucking dominated the Dolphins. Like it just goes to show how far ahead the Ravens are from an execution standpoint, right? Like, yes, Lamar had 5 touchdowns and it kind of more so got out of hand in the second half, but like 3 touchdowns in the first half. And I think he maybe had 17 completions. Like Lamar Jackson.
17 of 19, I think.
Yeah, I think like he was just as efficient as it gets. And like, I think that's also when we were talking about the Lions, that's what makes the Ravens even more scary because they can just beat you in so many various ways. You need to get into a shootout. Lamar's going to carry you in a shootout. You need your defense to go win you a game. The defense is fucking dominant. They might have the best linebackers in the NFL. Like, and we're not even talking about their offensive line. So, yeah, I mean, look, the Dolphins should be called frauds. Obviously, the Dolphins, everyone should. If you're going to attack the Dolphins, they need to be able to take it because now they have to go win at home and take the division. But the Ravens are easily the best team in the NFL right now. These back-to-back wins are probably the most impressive back-to-back wins over the course of the season, going from the Niners to the Dolphins and in the fashion that they did. But I still think the Dolphins are contenders. Now they've just been hit with injury after injury, and it sucks. Mike McDaniel should be probably tarred and feathered for keeping Bradley Chubb in the game with 3 minutes left down 30. But we're not going to talk about that. So we're moving on. But, Felipe, take your flowers. You got Lamar Jackson. You called him MVP before the season. You called the Ravens a 14-3 season. We all thought you were out of your fucking mind. And as much as it pains me to have to give flowers, you deserve those flowers.
Felipe, you deserve a hoorah. Hoorah.
Hey, I was looking at that. I was also looking at – I'm going to go back to this game. I also called the Cowboys at 12-5. That was keep in mind. Call them at 12-5. One more win, we get 12-5 and take the division.
I said the Dolphins.
Regardless, the Ravens – yeah, they look good, man. We've been saying. I mean, they're hot all year. I've been saying that they're the best team all year, pretty much. And they just look really good. I mean, you have to go into a game late in the year and beat a contender, as you say, Adam. And not only did they beat them, they beat them by 30 plus. What's the math there? 37. They beat them by 37. That's 5 touchdowns. And so. They're as dominant as it gets right now. Obviously, Lamar's playing out of his mind. When we said last week that, okay, he's the MVP favorite, but like the stats aren't there. He goes out and puts up a perfect passer rating, 5 touchdowns. Like it just goes absolutely crazy and puts up the stats that we want to see from an MVP candidate. now he's amongst like elite company when it comes to QBR or when it comes to perfect passer rating games. There's only been a couple quarterbacks in the NFL history that have multiple perfect passer rating games, and he's up there. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but he's like top 3 or something like that, or maybe he's 1. I don't know. But yeah, the Ravens just like really dominate. Obviously, like I don't think this doesn't change my perspective on the Dolphins. I never thought they were contenders in the first place, but I think this does show that Baltimore is even better than the public perceived, and that Lamar Jackson is that guy. That's
just out of curiosity, Felipe, while we're here, what makes a team a contender according to Felipe Fontes? I'm genuinely curious. Like, who are the contenders, and what makes them that contender?
I would say a great defense paired with a top 5 quarterback. To me, most of the time will make you a contender. So, or a great coaching staff will help that, a team that has been there before. So San Francisco, while they don't have a top 5 quarterback, they have an amazing defense. They have a coach who's been there before, a program that's been to the Super Bowl and that has had success in the playoffs. The other teams is Baltimore, top 5 quarterback, great defense. And other than that, I don't know if there's another true Super Bowl contender right now. Like Buffalo, I think you can say that. Great top 5 quarterback, a defense that's playing very well. Yeah, Kansas City, but they've been playing worse lately. So I wouldn't even say that right now that they're necessarily a Super Bowl contender, but they're fringe. And I think the Eagles
they fit that criteria, though, of what you're saying, of great defense and top 5 quarterback.
Yeah, that's true. But I don't know if their defense has been like one of the best lately.
Then you want to go back to but that's where I find it. I get the notion of the top 5 quarterback, but you also said it last week, and we saw it. Like, yes, the Dolphins defense just got the fucking brakes blown off of them. But the Dolphins defense statistically had been top 3 in the league since week 8.
They have.
Came back. So whether or not they're playing like it, and whether or not this game was not an ideal game to talk about the Dolphins defense, but like you're saying the Dolphins, I never thought they were a contender. Well, over the last 7 weeks of the NFL season, their defense was one of the best in the NFL, and their offense really hadn't been clicking either. But we had seen early on in the season what that offense can do. So I get what you're saying. I agree with you because I made a contenders list, and I'm curious to know what our thoughts are. It only feels like there are 2 teams, upper echelon teams that just feels like are going to meet, in the Super Bowl. And then there's teams that could go on and win 3 playoff games and go on a run, or just win 1 playoff game. That's kind of how I see it. And I do think the Dolphins fit into that category. I think the Cowboys fit into that category. The Eagles, even the Chiefs, there's so many teams in that category because there's only 2 at the top.
Yeah, I think that's why I'll agree with you in the fact that I think Dallas is similar to Miami, in a way that the reason Miami isn't there for me is not because of the defense. The defense has been playing well. It's Tua. He's not a top 5 quarterback. And I haven't seen Tua come up big in very crucial situations where he needs to, at the end of a season when it's make or break type thing. And I've seen other quarterbacks do that. Or it's a situation like the 49ers, who Brock hasn't necessarily done that either, but they have a team that has been there before and a coaching staff that has been there before. And so that's the difference between the Niners and the Dolphins. And so I think there's only 2 real contenders right now. I think that's the biggest thing. Sure. And the Niners don't even look as dominant as they did 5 weeks ago. Baltimore looks like they look far and ahead the best team in the league.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I also think we got to also have context. I'm curious. I wish Stephen Patton had an injury power rankings analytics list that I can just go off of right now, because the Dolphins have been hit with just injury after injury. And at some point, yes, you need to overcome injuries. But when you lose your 2-star, edge rushers, your starting center, you've been missing, 2 of your offensive linemen the last couple of weeks. Jalen Waddle was out. Mostert was out. You should get your fucking ass beat if you're missing a majority of your stars. So, but don't get it twisted. Not making excuses. Dolphins got their asses fucking handed to them. They're going to have a chance to go win the division. I was curious with your contenders because you were talking about the Dolphins are not a contender. Well, then under that logic, there's really only 2 contenders, but you just said that. Yeah. So I think that's fair to say.
Did you make a list of contenders, Adam?
What?
Did you make a list of contenders?
I did. You want to go into it right now?
Sure. I mean, I have something related to Lamar also.
I want to go into Lamar because I think Lamar has locked up the MVP. We all agree on that 5 touchdown performance.
Lamar Jackson is now minus 20,000 on FanDuel to be MVP.
It's insane.
Minus 20,000. Felipe, well done. Good call, my friend. What'd you get him at? What were the odds before the season? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
plus 600, something like I don't know, plus 1,500.
But correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Lamar doesn't lead in any statistical category, out of any of the quarterbacks. Is this factual?
I don't think he leads in any category at all, except for rushing yards amongst quarterbacks.
Can we fact check that, Matan?
I was looking through StatMuse earlier today just to see if he was in the top 10 of certain categories. He is in the top 10 of some. Like, I think he's in the top 10 of, like, touchdowns. I don't know, top 10, but I couldn't get any. I do have a game, though, related to stats amongst some of the MVP favorites right now. Obviously, Lamar is minus 20,000 for MVP, according to FanDuel. But I have the stats of the three other guys who are leading the MVP odds right now. That's Dak, Brock Purdy, Josh Allen, and Lamar. Okay? I'm going to read you some of their stats. Here, I'll send them to you so you can see them. You know what? Actually, I'm not going to tell you which one is which. You probably know some of them, Felipe, but I'm going to text them to you guys right now so you can take a look at them as well. Here's one of them.
I was trying to go through some stats and find some stuff. I mean, yeah, he's definitely – I'll tell you one thing. He's not in the top 3. A lot of these.
Here's 3.
You got stats for me, Papi?
I'm texting them to you guys right now.
Yeah, I got him.
I mean, I know, yeah.
Here is 4. Okay.
Okay.
So there are 4 players. Player 1 has 4,237 yards, 32 touchdowns, 264.8 yards per game, 104.2 passer rating, and only 8 INTs.
Yep.
Player 2, 4,280 yards, 31 touchdowns, 267.5 yards per game, 113 passer rating, and 11 INTs. Player 3, 3,947 yards, 27 touchdowns, 246.7 yards per game, 91.5 passer rating, and 16 INTs. Player 4, 3,678 yards, 24 touchdowns, 229.9 yards per game, 102.7 passer rating, and 7 INTs.
Is this total touchdowns or just passing touchdowns? I think
passing touchdowns.
Okay, and it's
however, I will tell you right now, Lamar Jackson only has 5 rushing touchdowns this year.
Yeah.
Josh Allen has 16 or 15. Jalen Hurts also has 15.
Josh Allen has 15 rushing touchdowns?
15 rushing touchdowns. I looked at it this morning.
Oh, damn.
Now, if you were to look at just these 4 players, Adam, I want you to look at this for a second.
It's the second one because it's Tua. I know, 42.
Which one? How would you rank these ones? Would you rank them how I sent them? Would you rank them in a different order? What would you rank if you were to rank these based on just the stats? How would you rank?
I mean, based on the stats, but like I know what you're
No, Felipe, I'm not trying to shit on Lamar here. I'm going to get to why I think this is actually a praise for Lamar. Go.
Okay. All right. I mean, in terms of stats, you probably go the 31. You probably go to 4,237 yards, 32 touchdowns first, and then you go in the exact order you sent them.
Yes.
All right. So the order I sent them in is player 1 was Dak. Player 2 is Brock. Player 3 is Josh Allen, and player 4 is Lamar Jackson, who is minus 20,000.
Wait, where's Tua? I thought you said Tua was on this list.
I didn't send Tua. I didn't say that.
Oh,
you said
that's
that.
so fucked up. Okay.
You said that. I didn't say that. You said that. Just to show you the odds for a second, Lamar, who was player 4 on our list, is minus 20,000 according to FanDuel. Dak is plus 1,600. Brock plus 2,500 and Josh Allen plus 3,000. Tua is 5th in the odds on FanDuel, so I didn't include him on this list. But my point is to show that the point of this is to show that Lamar Jackson 100% deserves to be MVP. I think everybody can agree with that. If you watch any football, you know he's the best player this year. He's been just dominating, leading his team to wins. And without Lamar Jackson on his team, the Ravens would not have 13 wins like they do. And I just think that this kind of proves to us that the MVP, though the statistics are very important, the MVP award is not, and I don't really think ever has been or should be about just what your stats are. It really is how valuable you are to your team. Now, is that to say that I do still think Tyreek or Christian McCaffrey should be MVP over him? Maybe, but I do think that this is a good little exemplar of why stats don't paint the full picture about players in the NFL.
Then let's, for the sake of it, let's theorize. You take away Lamar Jackson, you put Pro Bowl quarterback Tyler Huntley there. They may not have 13 wins, but they might be a 500 team. You take away Dak Prescott, you put Cooper Rush. I think
but what, dude? The difference between a 500 team and a 13 win team
it's in the context of what their record is right now. So my point is, by saying you put in Cooper Rush, maybe for Dak, I think they are a worse team than the Ravens with Tyler Huntley. If you take away Josh Allen and you put in who God knows who the fuck is back there after backing up Josh Allen, they're a far worse fucking team. You put in Mike White over Tua, you might have that's another maybe 500 team, maybe slightly above 500. Who else were we mentioning?
Are we saying 500 is good?
I'm saying in context of how good the team is now, going back to 500 is not that much of a drop off.
Yeah, but they're not beating they're not.
But that's not my point. The point is, if you're the most valuable player at the end of the day, then naturally that team should go from best to almost worst if you're elevating that much. I think the biggest drop-offs occur from the Cowboys, the Bills. Who the fuck else is there that I was missing? Like the Niners, like Brock Purdy's playing incredibly, but Sam Darnold, that team could be 500, right? That's my point, is the drop-off between how good they are now and if you put their backup quarterback in. If they go to 500, then how could they be that valuable? Now, this isn't to shit on Lamar, but Tyler Huntley,
because the difference between 13 wins and you're overvaluing what 500 is, right? Or 9-8 is, like a 13 win team that's a top 3 team in football almost every year, right? Like if a 9-win team is not, it never even is close. That's a huge drop off. I think the way I see that is like, that is as big of a drop off as it gets pretty much. Of course, you have to have good pieces around you.
Drop off. The Cowboys at 11 wins and going completely under 500, I feel very confident to say that. Or the Bills, their record should be drastically different, I think, because of those 2 losses. So I want to give them those 2 wins, but I can't. So we'll use the Cowboys for this argument. The Cowboys at 11 wins, you put in Cooper Rush, and they drop down below 500. Or the Ravens at 13 wins, and they go to 500. What's a more drastic turn of events? Theoretically, they're the same because they have 2 more wins.
It feels like the exact same to me. I don't feel any difference, which means Lamar. I mean, I don't know. It feels like no difference to me. I don't know what you're saying.
I get. Look, Lamar deserves the MVP. We keep saying that. I just think if we're gonna say stats don't matter, stats have to matter for.
That's not what I said. That's not what I said.
But what are you saying?
I said stats don't paint the whole picture. Stats are important, but that doesn't mean stats are the only reason that a player should win MVP. If that were the case, Dak Prescott would be the MVP right now. Brock Purdy would be the MVP right now.
Correct me if I'm wrong. In the NFL, I feel like it's the guy with the better stat, like top elite stats, and then the best record. This case this year, it's been best record, stats down here rather than being here. And I think that's not to say that
yeah, but we also have been saying though that
usually the best stats will go along with the best record. Usually that's what happens. Like the Chiefs will have the best the Chiefs will be the best team in the NFL, and Mahomes is putting up the best stats. So that's why that's a trend. But this year you have to look at it differently. You have to actually look at the nuances, because a team might be performing better, but the quarterback maybe isn't performing as well. Or like a team like the 49ers, who have the most talent in the NFL that maybe we've ever seen. And Brock Purdy's completely benefiting from that. But is he as valuable to his team as a Lamar is to the Baltimore? No. And you have to be able to look at a lot of different nuances. That's why I think it's different.
That I totally understand. And I'm not saying Lamar isn't the MVP. I'm just saying at some point, I feel like there might need to be a time where we flip it a little bit and say, okay, maybe the most valuable player of this year comes from a different position because of those stats. And again, this isn't me saying Lamar isn't the MVP, because he deserves it after a perfect pass rating, 5 TDs. Like, that's as good as it gets to wrap up the MVP. And frankly, Tyreek, the way he finished, doesn't deserve it. Or CMC, the way he, did a lot of people who he carried to the championships, fantasy teams, like, he doesn't deserve it. But I'm just saying, like, at some point we might have to break that trend of it just going to the best quarterback on the best team. And this felt like the year that it could have happened. And obviously it didn't, given how it ended. But I do think at some point, like, yes, you're right. We have to look at all the nuances and the context behind everything, but we got to break that trend also. So when is that going to happen?
I agree with that. I agree with that. I agree with that in terms of like changing the position, but I also still think that it's tough because the Dolphins could lose Tyreek. The Dolphins could lose Tyreek, and Mike McDaniel's going to scheme up that offense similarly. I know it hurts not have that crazy weapon, And the San Francisco 49ers, I know Christian McCaffrey makes a big difference, but as we've talked about, they've had great running backs that aren't good running backs, but have had great running back years in San Francisco. And so these guys are amazing independently, but when we talk about value, it's how important are you to your team's success? And Lamar is as important to his team's success as he's more important than Tyreek is to Miami and than Christian McCaffrey is to San Francisco. So then when you combine that with the wins, then I think that makes Lamar MVP, even if you do want positions. I
want to go back to
there.
I agree with you, Adam. The only other person I think that has the strong argument for the MVP is the guy who is second in odds right now, which is Dak Prescott. Right? You take Dak Prescott off the team, you're right. There's a huge dip in how the Cowboys perform. But right now, and I think there is some recency bias involved in what the MVP looks like. Right now, in the last few weeks, Dak Prescott hasn't been putting up those kind of numbers. They haven't been putting up those statement wins. Yeah, the Ravens have been. Lamar has been. Lamar goes and puts up fucking 5 touchdowns against the Dolphins, who, like you said, is a good team. You have to factor those things in as well. So I think 100%. Lamar is – I'm not saying you're disagreeing. I'm just trying to boost my argument as to why I think Lamar why I think stats don't paint the whole picture.
I get that. Can we go back? Can you just fact check? I'm blanking out. It was Rodgers, right? When Cooper Kupp won the Triple Crown, Aaron Rodgers won. That was his second MVP. Yes.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Right. So I think we look at that. That's a great situation, right? Like Matan, any chance because you have your computer open.
My computer's at 2%.
I got it. I can look it up. What you want, Adam?
I want to know Aaron Rodgers' stats that year. He won his second MVP, and I want to talk about them compared to Cooper Kupp's Triple Crown year. Because if we're talking most valuable player and we refuse to give it to anyone else besides the quarterback, then that case, Cooper Kupp has the best case to be the MVP in terms of a positional, a different position outside the quarterback. So I'm just curious because we're debating right now and having a conversation over the value of the quarterback position and how stats play a role in that. Aaron Rodgers must have been pure hooper hours then at that case because I can't remember his stats that year.
He had 4,000 yards, 4,100 yards, 37 touchdowns, and only 4 interceptions.
Yeah, so the INTs are massive. And they won what, 13? They were the number 1 seed.
They won 13-3, number 1 seed in the NFC, yeah.
So that's a great that makes sense, right? Best team in the NFL. He would have been number 1 in stats, right? Based off of what we're talking about. I understand that. But then you look at the value of Cooper Kupp on that Rams team, and I just think, you take Cooper Kupp off, they're not doing as well. And so
but we also did discuss, I don't know if you remember, but when we started the Caps Off podcast, the very first take after that season was that Cooper Kupp was a product of the system, right?
Sure.
And there was an argument to be made there, and I think anybody that watches football regularly knew that Cooper Kupp seriously benefited from the system he was in, similar to how Brock Purdy has benefited from the system he is in. And that's why he's probably not going to win MVP.
I get it. I'm not, and again, this was never to take away from Lamar. I just think at some point we cannot just give the MVP to the best quarterback on the best team. Now, granted, if Lamar, for example, didn't have this type of game, then it helps the argument I'm trying to make. But going off of a 5-touchdown performance, it obviously doesn't make any sense. I just think at some point we got to buck that trend, and that trend is not going to be bucked right now. I just, would have been interesting. That's all.
Yeah. Can we talk about the Eagles for a second?
Oh. I mean,
yeah.
The Eagles freaking stink, man. They're
Adam, you still think the top tier, top notch, elite, great, amazing team?
So here's what I'd say about the Eagles. I still think the Eagles are a team. Let me backtrack.
Are a team. They are a team. That's a good take.
Yeah. Take. You're not wrong.
When we used to get into arguments, and this is like 2 weeks ago, I thought the Eagles were still a team that can get the 2 seed, potentially the 1 seed. Never underestimate the heart of a champion, a team that made it to the Super Bowl, a team with a guy that was in the running for the MVP. I wasn't going to underestimate what the Eagles can do. And so if they have home field advantage, playing at the Link, it's one of the toughest things to do. Yes, that team was fucking deadly. And I still believed in them because, like we just said, there's only really 2 contenders, and that one of those contenders comes out of the AFC. So if it's the only other contender is truly the Niners, then I might take my chances if they had the 1 seed or have to go in as a 2 seed, given the talent on that team, because we do agree the Eagles still have a ton of talent. But now you analyze and you look at that Eagles defense and the fact that defense has been abysmal all year. Mm-hmm. The fact that it's a lot of these older guys that just look fatigued, exhausted after the Super Bowl run, like the energy isn't the same, then naturally I need to also change my tune and be like, this Eagles team is not as deadly as I anticipated them to be because I expected them to win these last 3 games and gain that confidence. So, yes, the Eagles are a team that I still think can win a playoff game, but I'm not going in there being like the Eagles can make a Super Bowl run, and that's what I said 2 weeks ago. So I'm changing my tune if that's kosher.
It's kosher.
So
Kosher.
yeah.
What?
Well, you don't think the Eagles can make a Super Bowl run? Is what you're saying?
I don't think the Eagles can make a Super Bowl run anymore
So
because
you're
of how their defense is.
So you are
But
changing your tune. You said.
Yes, I'm changing my tune.
Oh, okay.
But I still think the Eagles, and you'll see in my
tone?
contenders list and my tiers list. What are you saying, Matan?
Tone?
My tone? My tune. Changing my
Tune
tune.
or tone?
Hey, you look toned right now, bro. You been working out?
No, actually, it's been a couple days of
Change your
just feeling
tone?
like dookie. No, I think. Look, I think the Eagles. Like we have to talk about how teams are getting worse at the
that's
time.
fair.
And that's the Chiefs as well. It's insane to me that the 2 best teams of last year are becoming 2 of the worst teams heading into the playoffs, right? Like obviously the Colts, we can't really talk about the Colts that much, but the Colts are a team that like are winning fucking games. The Chiefs look fucking bad, even though they find a way to win against Jake Browning and the Bengals. The Eagles look fucking bad and they lose to the Cardinals. Now, shout out, maybe there is something in the water in losing to the Cardinals, and maybe the Cowboys and the Eagles will meet in the NFC Championship somehow, if that's even possible. But as of right now, the Eagles fucking suck, and it's frankly on that defense. So
there is we do put a lot of weight though on playoff history, like on your success historically in the playoffs, right? Of like, Dak hasn't had the playoff success, right? Like, whereas the Eagles have had the playoff success, but even if it isn't Jalen Hurts, right? They did win the Super Bowl a few years prior. And like you're saying, the Chiefs and the Eagles both are coming in not strong team. They're not coming in as the stronger seeds in either division, on either conference, but we gotta continue to hold that same weight of that history of playoff success.
Exactly.
And like I've said a million times, Patrick Mahomes is LeBron James, right? He's the best player in the league. He at any point is going to turn it on in the playoffs, and he's going to change the tune of the Chiefs' success this year. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think we should sleep on the Eagles still, because I still think that they have that history of playoff success. Nick Sirianni knows what he's doing in the playoffs. They proved it last year. Like they're gonna be a force to be reckoned with, I still think, in the NFC.
So I have a question that I want to propose to you guys, and I know I briefly asked you, Felipe, one time, and I think it's a good time to bring it up as we talk about the Chiefs versus the Eagles. The Chiefs are a team that does not have the talent of the Eagles. The Eagles still have a fuck ton of talent. Yeah. So I want to ask both of you guys, and I'm curious. I want to ask anyone that, like, on our TikTok, on our Instagram, on our YouTube, everything, like, what percentage of a team's success, how much can you attribute to a team's success in terms of percentage goes to coaching versus talent? So what percentage do you attribute to a team's success based off of coaching and talent? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Felipe's going to be able to answer this question better than
I know these answers.
Yeah.
So I just want you to talk about it because I want to make a point about the Chiefs and the Eagles.
I think it's super high. I think it's close to like 70% probably coaching, where you could have a very talented team and your coaching fucking sucks. Like you're going to be the Chargers. And the other end of that is the Miami Dolphins.
Yep.
Which they have a lot of talent, don't get me wrong, but I'm convinced Mike McDaniel can make literally anything happen. And same with Kyle Shanahan. So then when you give them talent, and then you're talking about like, oh wow, this is like
top teams in their conference. Yeah, exactly. Which they are. Both of those teams are.
Yeah, I said the exact same thing, right? And I got into a full-on argument about what percentage that looks like. And I said it's 60 to 70% coaching, whereas that other, whether it be 30% or 40% is talent. Because I agree with you. If you don't have talent, naturally you're going to suck. But if you're, like you mentioned, the Chargers, like the inverse of that also, let's look at like the Patriots, right? Who have had coaching but has no talent. And it doesn't, you have to, what your expectations are can't be, you have to like realign those expectations. What were you saying about the Giants?
The Giants are the opposite, right? They have Brian Daboll, who I think everyone here can agree is a very solid, good coach, has proven a lot of success, but has no talent and can't make anything happen with no talent.
I mean, and again, I think, I love how you brought up the Dolphins example, because the Dolphins, coming down to coaching, same exact offensive line, and they've had an offensive line that's been hurt pretty much all year. They were 32nd last year. They bring in a new offensive line coach with the scheme. Naturally, they are now one of the better offensive line units in the NFL, but same talent, right? Things didn't change. So I agree with you. I think coaching supersedes talent in the NFL. Now, that's not to say that you could just win with 90% coaching, 10% talent. You need talent, but it's got to be very close on either side, around the 50-50, 60-40, 70-30 type of range, depending on the team. The Chargers are a great example. The Patriots are another good example. The list goes on and on. So bringing it back to the Eagles versus Chiefs conversation, the reason I have more faith in the Eagles versus the Chiefs heading into the playoffs is because the Eagles have far more talent. Now, granted, the coaching, I trust Andy Reid over Nick Sirianni, and we've seen that because we have to put a lot of stock in the fact that the Eagles lost Shane Steichen, and the Colts are now in the playoffs, and Jalen Hurts doesn't look as good. And yet the Cardinals just went in to beat the Eagles with the former defensive coordinator who understands how to defend that team, right? And obviously the Cardinals are a team that doesn't have talent, and yet they somehow win 4 games this year, which I know it's not a lot, but like they still had looked competitive all year. Versus the other side of it, which is the Chiefs. Defensively, they have talent. They have Patrick Mahomes, but Kelsey doesn't look the same. And naturally, that entire offense is struggling. So I'm going to put more stock, more faith in the Eagles because of talent and the fact that Nick Sirianni has gone to Super Bowl, and I can't, take away from that. But when it gets to the playoffs, talent matters a ton. But I was just curious.
Yeah.
Matan, what would you say?
I fully agree. I think in general, like coaching will generally outweigh talent if you have like a kind of baseline level of talent. Like your average talent. But I do think that Patrick Mahomes is an outlier to that.
For sure. I think that's fair. I also think that changes in the playoffs. Does that make sense? I
agree. The Chiefs, I'm going to keep beating this drum until the drum fucking breaks or dies or whatever, goes mute or my tune changes. But Patrick Mahomes is I still think very clearly far and away the best player in the NFL. And Andy Reid is easily a top 3 coach in the NFL. And you pair both of them together, Patrick Mahomes is the talent, right? Like he is the talent and he is still the best player. And he makes it happen when it needs to happen. And I still think their defense is a top 5 defense, right? Like they've been great most of the year. And I just think it's hard to bet against them. Now, that's not saying I'm like, okay, everyone go bet on the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. That's a lock. Like I can't say that for sure. Of course, like the season hasn't proven to be like that, but just don't sleep. To quote a great scholar, Felipe Fontes, do not sleep.
That's right.
This team.
Hey, man, that was disappointing. But I will agree with Matan that I think when it comes to the playoffs and now everything, like it or not, the Chiefs don't try as hard during the regular season as other teams have to. Because they know they know they can win in the playoffs, bro. It's like the LeBron thing. Like
that's what I'm saying.
They're not going to take the regular season as seriously. Adam's going to hate that because it's like, oh, but the Dolphins. No, it's true. The Chiefs don't have to try this as hard, bro. They don't, and they don't want to. They don't care as much. Get into the playoffs when every game matters, and like these are big games that players either step up or crumble under pressure. The Chiefs know they will step up, and that other teams will crumble. And if they happen to run into, let's say, a Bills team that also does step up, I think you can still rely on your all-world quarterback, one of the most talented quarterbacks we've ever seen, a guy that's won 2 MVPs, a guy that's won 2 Super Bowls and 2 Super Bowl MVPs to come through. And the coaching that you mentioned, they have the coaching. So for the Chiefs, it doesn't matter if they're 9 and 8 and they make the playoffs. Once they make the playoffs, they're a contender. They're that team.
So I agree. Partially.
We are though. I'm hearing us say this, Felipe, and we are teetering on the taking Patrick Mahomes for granted thing of like, if we're wrong here, which like we very well could be, then like we're just expecting Patrick Mahomes to be the best all the time.
I also
that.
Oh, I am. I
am too. I'm all in on that as well.
But here's the difference in that. And I agree, like they don't care about the regular season, but like at the same time, they still have to win games. And this offense has been abysmal. And it's going to be the first time that Patrick Mahomes doesn't have home field advantage in his career in the playoffs. Like, this is not just a team that we can be like, yep, the Chiefs, they're going to be fine, because we could see that the talent is lacking offensively. And therefore, at some point, only so much talent can overcome that, right? They have the coaching, but the talent, like, yes, they have Patrick Mahomes, but someone's got to catch the ball. And there's a reason the Chiefs led the league in dropped balls. At some point defensively, and I've been saying this for weeks now, like defenses can't win you a Super Bowl in today's NFL. Now they could get you there and they could play like a damn Super Bowl team, but you need an offense to complement that, because if the time of possession is dominant, from the opposing team and the defense is on the fucking field the whole game, naturally there's going to be a slip up. There's going to be a crack. And so when you look at the Chiefs right now, defensively, they could hold the rope, but at some point that rope's going to fall through because the talent on offense lacks. So I get it. The Chiefs may coast. And granted, they just snuck by in terms of winning that division. Like it felt like they were just losing games and only putting up, I think it was like, they put up less than 10 points against the Raiders on fucking Christmas. Like we should be worried about the Chiefs. This is not just like your same old Chiefs that we can chalk it up to saying they're going to be fine because they have Patrick Mahomes. It's not. It's just not.
Yeah, but I feel like going into last season also we had this expectation that the Chiefs were going to be like mid, right? Like or like what they are now, right?
But offensively,
we think that last year's season was just a fluke.
No, but offensively they were performing. Like Patrick Mahomes had one of his best years with the weapons. So throughout the regular season, you were like, "Holy shit!" Yeah. Like this guy really doesn't need anyone. And then this year, statistically, he's been worse than Baker fucking Mayfield. Now I ripped that out of my ass, so don't quote me on it. But there's a high probability that he has been worse. Like it wouldn't shock me. So
Baker's been balling.
We can't put all the stock into being like it's Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. They're going to be fine because they don't have home field advantage. They don't have weapons. Kelsey doesn't look as good. Like there are distractions off the field, whatever weight you want to put into that. And defensively, like the arguments like bend, don't break. Like at some point with all this bending, they're going to break. And I just don't think this Chiefs team is the same Chiefs team.
It's fair.
Can I do my contenders list?
Yes, please.
I'm
Adam,
very curious.
Who are your top contenders?
Yeah, no, I'll give it to you. Please hold. I'll give it to you. I took a screenshot. I took a screenshot of it. Okay, so I have two different contenders lists. So the first contenders list is an actual Super Bowl contenders, NFL contenders list, and I want you guys to say where I missed, where I didn't, what you agree with, what you disagree with, and I am genuinely curious on that. So these are, these are the Super Bowl contenders heading into the NFL playoffs. This is how I see it, right? Heading into week 17 or 18, heading into week 18, these are like the teams that I genuinely believe can either win it all or just win a playoff game or two. And I want to know your guys' thoughts. So let's start with the category, which is the only ones who could win it all, according to right now.
Oh, we're looking at a tier list situation.
I have a tier list. Yes, this is a Super Bowl tier list heading into week 18. Okay, so in my eyes, these are the only two teams who can win it all, and I want your thoughts. It's the Niners and the Ravens, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Agree? Disagree? Join our Discord and let us know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Realistically,
I think there's, like I said earlier, like they're the two best contenders right now.
I would rename that tier, and I would call it like the teams that feel like a lock, because there are other teams,
right?
Other teams that I think could win it all.
I agree.
I agree with you, but that's why I wait for my next tier. Like right now, it feels like these are the only two who can win it all. That's why this is the tier heading into week 8.
Realistically.
Yeah. So then this next category, literally right under this, is they could win a playoff game or 2 or 3. And obviously 3 games is getting to the Super Bowl, and anything could happen. In this tier is pretty much the majority of teams in the playoffs. That's the Cowboys, the Chiefs, the Lions, the Eagles, the Dolphins, the Bills, and the Browns.
Okay.
Completely disagree.
I would take out the Lions and the Browns.
And the Dolphins.
You're telling me that all these – so the Dolphins can't win one playoff game. So the Lions –
You can, but you can't win 3. You put or.
What do you mean? You could win 1 or 2 or 3 because these are –
That's such a big difference. Winning one game, winning 3 is a huge difference.
But that's the next tier. The Cowboys can win one playoff game and not win another playoff game. The Cowboys can get hot and go on a run. The same with the Lions. The Browns, we can't underestimate them with how good their defense is and Joe Flacco playing amazing.
All right, sure. If your tier is that, then that's fine. It just doesn't feel like it would be the next tier.
It doesn't. What would be the next? It's too wide. It's too wide of a tier.
I would think it's like here are the Super Bowl locks, like guys who I legitimately could make the Super Bowl. Next tier would be like, to me, Cowboys, Eagles, Chiefs, Bills, right? Of just like any of these teams will they have a real chance to make the Super Bowl, but I don't think it's as big of a lock. Then it's like sleepers or something else, But if your tier is that, then I think that's a fine list. Any of those teams
is the next tier. Win. That's the discrepancy in going into the playoffs, is that it just feels like there's two amazing teams, and given the circumstances, who they have to play, where they play, any of these teams could go on a run. I feel very confident. That to me is the next tier of Super Bowl contenders.
The difference is okay. I think the difference and what we're talking about is that you think any team can go on a run, which you're probably right by that. Any team can go on a run, but you just said that all these teams in this tier.
Well, there's still 6. There's still 5 teams.
I know, but all the teams you just mentioned can go on a run, a Super Bowl run, right?
Yeah, I believe that.
Okay, so where the discrepancy is, I think where we disagree is that some of those teams have a way better chance to go on a run than the others, and that's why these should be 2 different tiers. The Dolphins compared to the Eagles, like I'm putting everything on the Eagles over the Dolphins in terms of actually making a run. And on the other side of that, there are a couple teams in that tier that are way more likely to lose in the first game they play in the playoffs than others. Yes. And so I think there should be 2 tiers.
And who would those teams be?
Miami, Detroit, and Cleveland would be the ones that are less likely to actually make a Super Bowl run. But
I agree. I'm higher on the Dolphins than Felipe is, but I agree that if I were to remove any teams from that, it would definitely be Detroit and Cleveland.
I mean, I just think that's because of the way. Like, let's not even argue Dolphins. Let's just take the Detroit example for the only reason we're saying that is given Detroit's history, and I understand there was a conversation about history, but Dallas's history is not very promising as well in the playoffs. So the fact that they just competed, and in Dallas they had a game stolen from them, we can't just say they're more likely for what? They both have the same record.
Who's more likely? Let's say the Cardinals. Let's say the Cardinals had a record where they could sneak into the playoffs right now. Would you say that the Cardinals have the same likelihood of the Eagles of going further? No, the Eagles do. But even though the Cardinals just beat the Eagles, that doesn't.
No, that's not at all what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the Lions, they have talent. We just talked about talent. They have coaching. We're talking about purely records right now. The Lions and the Cowboys have a very similar record, if not the same record. So
the Cowboys have been way better all year.
Over the year, yeah.
Over the year, they have been.
And recency as well. I mean, neither of them have been great. The Lions are 3-3 in their last 6.
Bro, just because the Cowboys have blow up games at home and then have been shit on the road, we got to give the Lions some credit here. What are we doing here?
Yeah, but it's levels to it.
Cowboys have not been. The Lions have been here all year.
Yes, they have.
No, they haven't, bro.
I could look at point differential. The Cowboys have been top 3 all year. I don't think the Lions are even close
at home because of how they played at home, and the Lions just went there and pretty much won that game if it wasn't for the refs.
No, but they lost. But
we're just not putting enough. Okay, sure, if that's the next one, but I think we'll go
with your tier.
What's your next tier?
Next tier is they won't win it all, but they're going to win one weird game, and I truly believe that. It's the LA Rams.
See,
yeah, that's a good one. I actually think for some reason that, and I actually know exactly what the reason is. I think the Rams are more likely to get a playoff win than the Lions, or the Browns.
I was gonna say that exact thing. If the Rams should be in that second tier. You put
Rams have talent and coaching, and history of success,
and a quarterback.
The Lions have way more talent than the Rams.
Yeah,
the Lions have way more talent than the Rams.
Worse coaching and no history in the playoffs, and worse coaching.
Right. So, and then I said at one point, talent matters in the playoffs. So that's why I'm going to put them there. I don't think they have enough talent to overcome things. They have one of the younger rosters in the NFL. The Rams are a good fucking team and they can surprise someone, but they don't have enough talent to get you there, whereas the Lions do. And their coaching staff has looked pretty damn good over the course of the year. So that's my next. The next year after that is they should just be happy to win their division because that's the Jags and the Bucs. The Jags right now are 9-7, tied with the Colts, tied with the Texans. They were 8-3 at one point. They lost a fuck ton of games. They have talent, and they should just be happy to sneak by because they played with their food as of late. They are a better team than what the record shows, but they should just be happy. And then on the Bucs, if they played in any other division, being 8-8 does not scare me going into the playoffs that much, regardless of how they're playing. And losing that way to the Saints is pretty damn bad considering what the Saints are. So that's my next tier. Qualms, concerns, probably everything because Felipe hates everything I do.
No.
I just think that second tier could have been divided up into 2. That's my only qualm and concern. Everything else I pretty much agree with.
I pretty much agree too, but I also think Tampa could win a game in the playoffs. That's my only other thing.
The only reason
I agree with Matan.
Win a playoff game is because they're going to win the division and host at home. So obviously things could change, but a home field advantage is massive. Whereas with the Rams, I think they could easily go on the road and sneak one out. But no, I still think you guys are hating on the Lions far too much, but that's okay. Because I know
that you think that.
And then my last tier going into week 18 is just the two teams, right? This is like not finalized. So I'm just going off of the teams that would be in the playoffs today. These are the two teams that I think are playing just with house money, and that's the Colts and the Packers. The Packers, obviously, arguably, I think, not arguably, but the youngest roster in the NFL. And the Colts playing with Gardner Minshew, a backup quarterback, and very little talent compared to some of these other teams in the playoffs. Whatever they can do, just getting to the playoffs is a massive accomplishment. And whatever happens from there, if you're a fan of that team, you should be super proud of. So
Condo's crying in the club.
Look, the Texans could sneak in, other teams could sneak in, so this could change drastically. But going into week 18, those are the teams in the playoffs that the playoffs start. And if the Colts and the Packers make it, given what their roster makeup is, you should be happy.
Yeah.
Look, man, I don't have a problem with your tiers for the most part. I think it's what Matan said. The second tier could probably split it a bit, but I like it. I like it. It's not bad.
Don't be shocked.
We disagree on the Lions. It's okay. It's okay to disagree, guys.
I think
everything. Everyone in the comments needs to agree all together. 100-0.
Yeah, that's a good point. Everyone tell Adam he's a W. He needs it. He needs a little confidence.
Miss Jack. Jack would agree. I miss Jack. Jack would agree with me.
Well, he'd be fighting for the Lions, no doubt. But I'm not. I don't think it. I haven't thought of me and Felipe shitting on the Lions. I just think that the Cowboys are so much better. You watch them; they're so much better.
Why?
Because they're more talented. They have fucking Dak Prescott, who's been having a dominant year. Their defense is better. Their point differential is better. They have a knockout punch.
Point differential was because of home games and the
Adam. That doesn't matter. The Cowboys are going to have 2 home games. You just said the reason the Buccaneers
and I'm saying the Lions
game is because they're going to have a home game.
The Lions just went into Detroit and basically won the fucking game.
Into Dallas. Okay. So
into Dallas, yes.
So do home games in Dallas matter or not?
Of course they do, but that's why I'm giving more stock.
So they do. So if Dallas is going to have 2 home games, their point differential is 166, which is the 3rd best in the league. The Lions' point differential is plus 56. The Cowboys triple their point differential.
I get it.
So do home games matter or not? If they matter, then we have to count the point differential.
Detroit just went into Dallas and said, "Fuck your point differential."
And Dallas played bad, and they still won.
Yeah.
But it's not like Detroit played amazingly either.
Yeah, but they don't play amazingly.
Dude, Dallas also just...
Here's the thing. We've said this all year. We've actually said this all year. This isn't a new development with Dallas. We said at their ceiling, they're a Super Bowl team. At their floor, they're just around average. They could get beat by anybody. We've said that all year. This isn't a new development. So Detroit played at their ceiling, which is pretty good. It's not great. Dallas at their ceiling is as good as any team in the league. That's the difference. And I think when you go into the playoffs, just kind of like we were talking with the Chiefs, when everything you have to go all out, then you're probably going to play better than you would in a game at the end of the year when Dallas has had a locked in playoff spot for 3 weeks now. They're not playing for that much. Now it turns out they actually are playing for a little bit more because the Eagles are losing. But I just think, to sum that up, Dallas has a way higher ceiling than Detroit. I understand that Detroit played very well in Dallas and should have won the game if it wasn't for the refs.
Did Dallas clinch the division yet?
No, we win this week. We clinch the division. Or think Philly loses to the Giants.
The Lions have a higher floor, it feels like, right now than the Cowboys, and I also can trust the fact that
that could be true.
So I don't think that, but that's what goes back to my next argument, right? That goes back to that tier number 2, which is I don't know what teams are going to show up, but I do know how the ceilings and floors work of those teams, and any of those teams can go from winning 1 game to going on a run, and neither would shock me. So right now, going into the Super Bowl, going into the playoffs, at least, I feel confident to say 2 teams should meet in the Super Bowl. Outside of that, I don't feel confident to say anything else.
I agree.
Those 2 teams are good teams.
They are.
And that's why they fit into tier number 2. That's all.
All right. So Adam brought up a list, right? Adam brought up a list, and I know we were saying let's have a couple games, a couple things to look at for a little bit. So I actually looked at this because Lamar, as you talked about, Matan, minus 20,000 to win MVP.
Yeah.
He's probably going to win his second MVP. Don't let people forget, because everybody likes to forget, that Lamar won the first ever unanimous MVP in NFL history in 2019. I believe it was. Amazing season. Played incredible. And actually, a lot of people are using that season to his detriment this year because they're like, oh, he won MVP that year with those stats. These stats don't compare to that. And it's like, yeah, he's the first ever unanimous MVP.
He led the league in passing touchdowns also. So, like, if anyone wants to knock the stats, like, get the fuck out of here. What are we doing?
So, no, nobody's knocking those stats. They're using those stats from that year to downplay his stats this year and say he doesn't deserve the MVP this year because it doesn't compare to those stats. When I'm saying he was the first ever unanimous MVP ever in 2019, you expect him to live up to those stats. Nobody else in the NFL history has.
There will not. He will not be close to unanimous this year. There will be lots of votes for other people.
Also, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
So here's what I have. Okay, because not many players have won multiple MVPs, and it looks like Lamar is going to be able to do that. And it's great for us because we're Lamar fans on this podcast, and this is just another reason to put Lamar really in that upper echelon of quarterbacks right now, and potentially if he keeps us going for a few more years all time. So I want you guys to guess the top 10 players. Let me see how many players have done this before. So okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Exactly 10 players have won multiple MVPs. I want you guys to guess them. Okay.
All right. Patrick Mahomes.
So let me actually lead off with this. I want you guys to guess the 10 players who have won multiple MVPs. Matan, you guess Patrick Mahomes? He is one of them. Yes, he's won 2.
Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers, he is another one. He's won 4, which is the second most.
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady has won 3.
I'm trying to think, did Peyton win more than one? I don't think he did.
Peyton Manning has the most.
Sorry,
Peyton Manning has the most MVPs ever. He has 5, bro.
Damn.
That's crazy.
I got another one.
I gotta think. Hold on.
Peyton has 5, bro. Why did I think he only had like 2?
Joe Montana.
I'm in ball knowledge.
Joe Montana. Hold up, my internet's bugging. Joe Montana. He is on this list with 2.
Kurt Warner.
Kurt Warner has 2.
Yeah, he is 2.
You guys are doing great. You haven't missed yet, and there's only a few more players on this list. There's only 3 more, I think, that you guys haven't said.
I doubt it. I don't know. I'm trying to think. Let me think. Hold on. Did Marino do it? Did he ever have an MVP?
Yeah, he probably had 1, but he didn't have multiple.
Tough.
I feel like, God damn it, I don't want to say him. I mean, I'll just rip Big Ben, but I don't think he has.
Yeah. No, I don't know if he has. I don't know if he has 1.
I think he just won the Super Bowl MVPs.
Yeah, Super Bowl MVP.
Who else is good at football? Fucking.
We've been going on for like an hour and 10. You want to just rip the final?
No.
I'll give you a couple hints. This guy also played for the 49ers.
Adam?
You said Joe Montana. The other great, Steve Young. Okay.
Steve Young.
This guy is the only non-quarterback on this list. Who is it?
Jerry Rice.
No.
AP didn't win it twice, did he?
Think about some of the greatest players that ever played a game.
Barry Sanders.
That's what I was about to say. Jim Brown.
Yeah. Has 3. Great one. You're missing a legendary quarterback. Like a legendary quarterback.
Oh, we are.
Broadway Joe.
He started playing in the 90s, played throughout the 2000s. Like he played while we were growing up.
Brett Favre.
Brett Favre has 3.
Oh my God, bro.
Yeah, how do we miss that? He has
And then-
3?
Because it's not easy when you're just looking at a camera. You can't think it.
And then the last guy you guys are missing played a while ago. Like a famous, like a big name, but played when like probably mailmen were playing as well.
Just rip it.
Johnny Unitas.
Unitas.
The original Johnny Football. So yeah, that's it. So just rehashing that list in order. Peyton Manning has 5. He has the most. Aaron Rodgers with 4. Nobody else has 4. And then a lot of players have 3. Tom Brady has 3. Brett Favre has 3. Jim Brown has 3. Johnny Unitas has 3. Then Patrick Mahomes has 2. Kurt Warner has 2. Steve Young has 2. Joe Montana has 2. If Lamar Jackson wins the Super Bowl this year, the 2023-2024 season, he'll join that list, which is like as elite as it gets.
Say that again. If he wins the Super Bowl.
if Lamar Jackson wins his second MVP this season in the 2023-2024 season, he'll join that elite list.
I mean, it's insane. I think, and I started having this conversation yesterday, and I want to have it with you guys quickly, is that if and when Lamar wins his second MVP, naturally, no matter what, we got to put him as the second best quarterback in the NFL. Does Lamar Jackson officially become the second best quarterback in the NFL with his second MVP?
No.
I also think no.
I'll tell you why. Because we know how good he is. And so the MVP is great. And it solidifies his cause. It solidifies the argument.
Aaron Rodgers has 4 MVPs. That doesn't mean he's the best quarterback in the league.
Okay, continue.
But it solidifies the argument for him being the second best, or makes him even stronger case for a top 3 to 5 for sure. But we know how good he is. This isn't new. Like we say, this isn't as good a season as he had in 2019. We already knew what he could do. What we want to see from Lamar is playoff success, like multiple. He has one win. And I'm the one that talks about his win the most, because everybody says he hasn't had playoff success. He hasn't been in the playoffs that much, and he's really young. He's like 25 years old, and he has 1 win. So if he can build upon that this year, then that'll help out. I think for him to solidify top 2 status, he needs to go to the Super Bowl. And he could lose the Super Bowl, but he needs to at least go to the Super Bowl.
Okay.
Because until then, Josh Allen could go to the Super Bowl this year, and I think most people would probably say Josh Allen is better than Lamar, and I can't really argue against that because he's had more playoff success.
Okay, I agree with that, right? So, I should have gave more context to what I was asking, because, yes, I think naturally Lamar, given the MVP, that argument, me saying as if he won 0 playoff games this year, that's unlikely, because they're going to have the 1 seed and they're going to be the closest to making it to the AFC Championship. So, I think, yes, if Lamar Jackson makes it to the Super Bowl, or even – I don't even know if, yes, ideally he would need to win, the AFC Championship. But even if he just goes to the AFC, Championship and then has a pretty decent game with that second MVP, I still think he has a damn good fucking case to be the second best quarterback in the league, because we throw Joe Burrow in there for going to the Super Bowl. He's never even had close to an MVP season. And the talent around Joe Burrow has been amazing. With Josh Allen, the talent hasn't been there, but he's put up MVP-like seasons, but he hasn't had real playoff success that we put weights there. So if now we want to talk about stats and accolades, that's got to have a lot of value. And then if you're able to also just get to the AFC Championship, which is closer than a lot of fucking quarterbacks, naturally I think he's got a great case to be the second best.
Yeah, I agree with you. If he gets to the AFC Championship, I'm already saying he's the second best quarterback. I'm already leaning that way.
Yes,
and I have been. And I have been for ever since we've been doing this podcast. But I would say for everyone, and no one's ever going to fully agree with this because there's a lot of Lamar haters out there for multiple reasons, as we know. But for Lamar to be more unanimously considered the second best quarterback in the league, he has to at least make the Super Bowl. And even still, people are going to say, oh, but Joe Burrow made the Super Bowl, and I think he's a better quarterback. But Joe Burrow's never had the seasons that Lamar has had. And I cannot wait, because we know this is going to happen.
Yes.
We absolutely know this is going to happen.
Yes.
I cannot wait for the fucking Ravens to make the Super Bowl and people to say Lamar was carried by that team, because his stats won't be there. When we didn't do that for Joe Burrow, we didn't do that for other quarterbacks who have made the Super Bowl with amazing teams. That's going to happen. You know it's going to happen, because it's what they're trying to do with his MVP right now. That's what they're going to try to do when he makes it to the Super Bowl. And it's first it's Lamar can't win the playoff games, and then when he wins the playoffs game, it's going to be that his team carried.
No, Felipe, bro, this is the year Lamar's going to ball out in the playoffs, make the Super Bowl, and prove all the haters wrong. I feel it. I feel it.
He doesn't. Yeah,
I feel it brewing.
It's so crazy. I could not agree more. If Lamar Jackson goes and win the Super Bowl, I guarantee you almost 50%, if not more, of the population of NFL fans will not say he's the second best quarterback in the league, because I think there's a factors of race. I think as a factors of being a passing quarterback and a pocket passer. And I think people just want the person to sit back there and pass and even have the craziest stats. But then people will forget that when he won that unanimous MVP, he also led the league in passing touchdowns, which then people will say, well, passing touchdowns. Lamar's accolades will be up there with some of the best, as you just mentioned in that list. Not many quarterbacks in the NFL have ever had more than 2 MVPs. So I cannot wait for that discourse to happen.
It's insane. It's actually fun to think about. But if that, like you just mentioned it, I hadn't even thought about that. But if Lamar wins the Super Bowl this year and he gets his second MVP, which is very likely he's going to get the second MVP, no other quarterback, even if he doesn't win the Super Bowl, no other quarterback other than Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers has close to his accolades.
Yeah,
close. So it shouldn't even be a conversation.
It won't be. It won't be. Yeah, it's a losing crazy, argument. You have all the fucking backup to.
It's also crazy. There's 3 active quarterbacks in the NFL that have a Super Bowl. Rodgers, Stafford, and Mahomes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Am I missing one?
Yeah.
If in that case, 2 have 2 MVPs, and who are we taking then? Rodgers right now or Lamar Jackson? Naturally, that's how it's going to go. So if we just go pure stats,
you probably take Lamar because he's younger and you think about longevity. But yeah, it's really.
But my point is you're not going to say Aaron Rodgers is the 3rd best quarterback in the NFL or the 2nd.
Joe
best.
Flacco. Someone just commented Joe Flacco also has a Super Bowl.
Oh, Flacco. Fuck. Okay, so Flacco. Yes, but
but like starters, as far as like starters, guys who actually like are going to be in rankings as far as quarterbacks.
I think it is important to say, like, let's it's heading into week 18. Lamar Jackson's going to go win his 2nd MVP. He's likely going to get to the Super Bowl, given just the path that they have, right?
Russell Wilson.
And Russ. Okay, so fuck us.
Okay,
right?
There's a couple.
Right. But he's likely to do that. And now the conversation is going to begin because Lamar Jackson, I cannot wait for people to say Joe Burrow over him, people to say Josh Allen over him, when he goes and wins that Super Bowl with 2 MVPs. Jesus Christ.
Because the only thing that like Joe Burrow has right now, people are going to say, oh, like the playoff success. All right, cool. Like you can't really debate that. You're right. But I just have a feeling the goalposts are going to keep moving. But hey, it's gonna be fun, man. It's gonna be fun. We're in January now, so this is the best month of the year when it comes to football, man. It's exciting.
Dude, very pumped for the playoffs. We got a lot of good stuff coming. Can't wait to keep going with you boys. Hopefully we'll get Jack back on for the predictions episode again this week for the last week of predictions. So stay tuned.
I haven't told Jack this just yet, but I think I'm taking Jack to the Dolphins-Bills game Sunday night for the division, and it would be fun to get him back on the live. Because I'll do it live while we're at the game. I'm gonna do it. We're doing a big tailgate as well. I haven't told him.
Announced it to the world, so now you have to do it. You have to bring him.
Right?
Hey, nobody that's watching or listening right now, live stream or afterwards, DM Jack or nothing, because I feel like that's something easily somebody could do. Yo, did you hear you're going to the Dolphins game? Yeah. Don't do that shit. Don't tell them.
Don't do it yet. Don't do it. I gotta make sure I gotta make sure the season tickets are all lining up, but. That should be a fun one to be there with Jack and have him.
That's so sick. Enjoy, brother. Happy New Year to everyone. Hope you have wonderful things coming in 2024. Felipe, no more fantasy episodes this year, so give some words of inspiration for 2024.
2024 is your year. We're going to be great. You know why we're going to be great? Because Adam is awesome. That's why. If you want to be great, you'll be great because Adam is awesome. And
awesome, Adam. Alliterations. Skull. Cool.
And Matan's awesome. And so if you guys want to literally be like the coolest guys of all time, then, you do what these guys do. So
just go awesome. Be great. Just go be great.
Yeah.
Dude, we need to get back in the studio. This feels so weird.
It does. All right. Yeah. Thanks for listening to the Caps Off Podcast. Peace.
Love you. Bye.